Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are grabbing our popcorn, dimming the lights, and traveling back to the golden age of Hollywood. But, and here's the kicker, we aren't just reviewing a vintage sci-fi flick for the fun of it. We're looking at a source that claims a specific 1951 movie might actually be a survival guide for, well, for right now.
It's a fascinating premise, really. We're looking at an article by Louis B. Vega called When Worlds Collide, Planet X and the Prophetic Script. And essentially, the author is making a case for what's often called, predictive programming.
Predictive programming, I hear that term thrown around a lot in certain circles, but for anyone who might just be tuning in, how are we defining that here? Is it just like a coincidence, or is it something more calculated?
In this context, it is definitely calculated. The theory is that governments, or the powers that be, use fiction, movies, books, TV shows to sort of psychologically condition the public for future events.
Like a soft disclosure.
Exactly. You introduce a wild concept in a movie so that when it happens in real life, people aren't so shocked.
So instead of panic, you get more of an, oh, I've seen this before reaction.
Right. But Vega takes it a step further into the spiritual realm. He argues that there's a kind of rule of engagement at play. The idea is that these hidden forces, they're actually obligated to warn humanity before they act. They have to tell us what they're going to do, even if they hide that warning in, a B-movie script.
That is a heavy concept to hang on a 1951 film.
Yeah.
The movie in question is When Worlds Collide. If you haven't seen it, the elevator pitch is pretty simple. It's your classic disaster setup.
A rogue star named Bellis and its planet Zyra are on a collision course with Earth.
And Earth is doomed. The only hope is to build a space ark, put a lottery-selected group of people on it, and launch them to Zyra to start over.
Standard 50s sci-fi fare. You've got the rockets, the silver suits, the dramatic music. But Vega looks at this and sees a parody, a deliberate mimicry of a real-life scenario involving what's often called Planet X.
Okay, so let's unpack that arc part first, because he isn't just saying, he's drawing a theological line here that I found really surprising.
He is. He argues the movie's space ark is a direct allegory for the biblical Noah's Ark, which I think most people would pick up on. But he goes deeper into eschatology, the study of the end times. He equates the people on that ship with the remnant or the bride of Christ.
So in this reading, the rocket ship taking off is the rapture.
Precisely. And he uses a really interesting piece of biblical typology to back this up. The story of Joseph from the book of Genesis.
Joseph, the coat of many colors guy.
That's the one. In theology, Joseph is often seen as a type or a foreshadowing of Christ, and Vega points out a very specific detail. Joseph married an Egyptian Gentile woman, and he stored up wheat to survive a coming famine.
I remember the wheat part. The 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, right?
Right. Well, Vega sees that mirrored in the film. The whole plot revolves around storing resources, genetic material, animals, food, and getting ready to leave Earth before the destruction hits. He argues this is a coded message about the exodus of believers before the tribulation.
So the movie is telling us, get ready to leave, but leave because of what? In the movie, it's a giant star. What does the source say is out there in real life? Because rogue star sounds like something NASA would have mentioned.
This is where we pivot from theology to what you might call fringe astronomy. The source throws a lot of names at us for this thing. Nemesis, the Black Sun, the Red Dragon, Vulcan, and yes, the Nibiru Death Star.
The Nibiru Death Star, that sounds terrifying, but also like something out of Star Wars.
It's a vivid description for sure.
Yeah.
But Vega is being quite literal about the mechanics. He describes this approaching object not just as a big rock, but as a mini solar system.
Wait, a solar system within our solar system?
That's the claim. He suggests the central object is a brown dwarf.
Okay, help us out with the astrophysics here. What exactly is a brown dwarf?
Think of it as a failed sun. It's a celestial body that just didn't have enough mass to trigger the sustained nuclear fusion that makes a star shine like our sun. So instead of exploding outwards, it imploded inwards.
So it's dense.
Extremely dense. And according to the source, it acts like a massive magnet. But the key detail for Vega's theory is what's orbiting it. He claims this brown dwarf has 7 planets or satellites trapped in its gravity. And the source connects those 7 satellites to the crowns or horns of the red dragon described in the book of Revelation chapter 12. He's building a bridge between the astrophysical theory and the biblical imagery.
Okay, I see the bridge he's building, but here's the obvious question. If a mini solar system with a magnetic dwarf star was heading for us, wouldn't we just look up and see it?
That is the million-dollar question, and
Yeah.
Vega anticipates it. Since a brown dwarf has imploded, it doesn't emit visible light like our sun. It actually absorbs light.
So it's basically invisible to the naked eye.
To the naked eye, yes. He argues it can only be detected via the infrared spectrum. You need heat-sensing equipment to find it, because it still gives off a ton of heat.
And I'm guessing he thinks someone is looking for it.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the more provocative parts of the article. He points the finger directly at the Vatican.
The Vatican? Like the Pope?
The Vatican Observatory, specifically. He points to a telescope they operate on Mount Graham in Arizona.
I've heard rumors about this. Doesn't it have a specific name that people always freak out about?
It does, and it sounds like an urban legend, but it is factually true. The full name of the instrument is the Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research.
Yeah, it is a mouthful.
Which is why they use the acronym.
Yeah.
LUCIFER.
You cannot make this up. The Vatican has a telescope named Lucifer.
Technically, it's the instrument attached to the telescope, but yeah. And Vega argues this is no coincidence. He believes they chose that name because they are tracking the Lucifer signal, the false light, this Nemesis object coming up from the south under the galactic equator.
Coming up from the south, stealth mode. Okay, so in this theory, you have the church hierarchy watching for the red dragon using Lucifer, while the rest of us are in the dark. What happens when it gets here, according to the source?
Well, this brings us right back to the movie. In When Worlds Collide, the approach of Belus causes massive earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, just from the gravitational pull alone. Vega says this is exactly what the Red Dragon, or Planet X, will do.
So the movie effects were accurate.
He maps these events to the seal judgments and trumpet judgments in the Book of Revelation. Pole shifts, chaos, the sun going dark. Basically, the movie is a preview of the tribulation. It's pretty interesting that he thinks a 1951 movie would get the physics, or at least the effects, right.
It sounds like he thinks the scriptwriters had inside knowledge. Which leads us to the part that blew my mind when I was reading this, the dates.
The dates are incredibly specific.
Yeah, there's a line in the movie where they're calculating when the rogue planet Zyra is going to pass by Earth, and the character says, quote, "We should feel the effects of Zyra's passing on July 24th at about 1:00 p.m.
Right. And for most people watching, that's just a random date in the script to create a deadline.
Yeah.
But Vega zeroes in on this. He has this whole theory that July 23rd or 24th is the true time frame for the biblical Pentecost.
Pentecost, that's the day the church started in the Bible, right?
Correct. And in many eschatological circles, Pentecost is considered a high watch date for the rapture. Vega points out that July 23rd in the West is July 24th in the East, specifically in Israel. He speculates this could be a window for the event.
That is precise. But then there's the math, the 100-year calculation. I had to read this part twice because it felt like we were going full beautiful mind. Can you walk us through this?
This is a classic example of looking for code in the dialogue. In the film, the scientists are discussing the speed and distance of the approaching bodies. One scientist says they traveled 1 million miles in 2 weeks. And later, someone estimates they are 3 billion miles away.
Okay. Distance and speed. Simple math.
But then there's a weird conflict. A character says, we do not have to worry for 100 years or so. But the head scientist corrects him, saying, no, they will be upon us in a year.
Right, because in the movie it's moving fast. The 100 years guy was just wrong.
Exactly. But Vega asks, what if the 100 years comment wasn't a mistake, but the actual code from the writers? He does this calculation where he swaps the units. He suggests that 1 million miles per 2 weeks is actually code for time.
How does that work?
It's a bit abstract, but he basically suggests that if you do the math, the total travel time, based on those numbers, comes out to roughly 6,000 weeks.
Okay, 6,000 weeks.
And 6,000 weeks is just over 115 years.
So roughly a century.
Correct. Vega argues the script gave away the timeline. If you start the clock at the movie's release in 1951 and add about 100 years, you land right in the middle of our century. He argues we are in that window now. The 100 years line was the warning that this generation would see it.
That is some serious number crunching. It reminds me of how people analyze, the Great Pyramid or old maps. Speaking of names and hidden meanings, the source also breaks down the names of the planets in the movie. Belus and Zyra. They're not just random sci-fi names, are they?
No, and the etymology fits his theory perfectly. Vega notes that Belus is derived from Latin words meaning beautiful or good-looking.
Which is pretty ironic considering it's a Death Star that destroys the Earth.
That's the point. He says it represents a false sense of security. It looks elegant, it's mesmerizing, but it brings destruction. It's a false light. In theology, Lucifer is often called an angel of light. So Belus is the beautiful destroyer.
And what about the planet Zyra, the one they're trying to escape to?
This one is interesting. He actually references lore from the video game League of Legends.
A video game reference. That seems like a stretch for a 1951 movie.
It does, but he's using it to characterize the archetype. In that lore, the character Zyra is described as the wrath of nature given form, a hybrid of plant and human. And the planet Zyra in the movie is lush, overgrown, wild, a place of untamed nature. But it also represents a new and maybe dangerous beginning.
Which leads us to the end of the movie. And I think this is where the predictive programming theory really swings for the fences. The survivors make it, they land on Zyra, they open the hatch, and what do they see?
They see a new Eden. It's all lush greenery. But in the background, there is a very specific visual detail. 3 pyramids.
Pyramids on an alien planet.
2 massive ones and 1 smaller one. Vega points out that this layout mirrors the Giza Plateau in Egypt almost perfectly.
And why would that be there?
He connects it to the pyramids of Mars theory, the idea that there are similar structures in the Cydonia region of Mars. He argues that by putting pyramids on the Salvation Planet, the movie is signaling that the beings who built the pyramids on Earth, and maybe Mars, are the ones in control of this new world.
So he's talking about aliens.
He's talking about fallen angels. He believes these entities masqueraded as aliens and seeded humanity. And the movie showing these pyramids on the Salvation Planet is a nod to their origin. He suggests that New Eden isn't a fresh start, it's a return to their influence.
Wow, that turns the happy ending into a horror movie pretty quickly. It implies that Space Ark didn't save them from evil, it delivered them right back to it.
Exactly. It suggests the salvation offered by the world, the technology, the rockets, is actually a trap.
That is a lot to pack into a matte painting from a 1950s movie. But there was one more thing hidden in that scene, right? Something about the year 2012.
Yes. This is highly visual, so you have to picture this. To the left of the pyramids in that final scene, there are rock formations. A dragon-head rock, some obelisks, and rectangular etches. Vega claims these formations visually encode the Mayan number for the year 2012.
How do you write 2012 in rocks?
In Mayan numerals, numbers are written with bars and dots. Vega says the rock markings 3 lines, 2 circles, 2 lines correspond to the Mayan notation for that year.
But hang on, 2012 came and went. We're still here. The world didn't end.
True. But Vega addresses that. He says the powers that be knew about the Mayan calendar. He argues that 2012 wasn't the end of the world, but the end of an astronomical day count. It marked the moment Earth began rising above the galactic plane.
So it was a turning point, not a stopping point.
Exactly, a shift into a new age, or the approach to the millennial kingdom. He suggests the movie encoded 2012 to signal this transition period that we're currently in. So the clock really started ticking down in 2012.
Okay, so we're in the transition. The 100-year clock is ticking. What does the source say we should be looking for next? Does he give us any future dates to circle on the calendar?
He does. He offers a few specific watch dates. He mentions September 11th, 2029.
2029, why that date?
He believes it'll be an approximation of the Revelation 12 sign again, or possibly when the red planet, Planet X, starts to become visible to the naked eye.
That is getting uncomfortably close.
And then he points to the window of 2032 to 2033. There's a blood moon tetrad, 4 total lunar eclipses in a row happening then. He correlates this with the 30 minutes of silence mentioned in the book of Revelation.
30 minutes of silence. What does that mean in this context?
He speculates that this silence in heaven might correspond to the actual flyby of Planet X, the moment of closest approach. Think of it as the calm before the storm, or the moment everyone holds their breath before impact.
Wow. It's fascinating how he weaves the astronomy, the movie script, and the Bible verses into this one single timeline.
It's a synthesis of very different fields. You've got Hollywood history, ancient mythology, biblical texts, and orbital mechanics all rolled into one.
So to wrap this up, the source's main argument is that When Worlds Collide was basically a documentary from the future.
Or a warning from those who knew it was coming. The idea is that the fuel shortages, food shortages, the geopolitical chaos we see today, Vega views these as precursors. He calls it the lead-up to the 7-year Sabbath, or the tribulation. The movie was telling us, the world has been warned.
It really changes how you watch old movies, doesn't it? You start looking for the code in everything.
It certainly encourages a more active kind of viewing. You stop seeing it as just entertainment and start asking, what are they trying to tell me?
Absolutely. Well, here's a final thought for you to chew on, listener. We talked about predictive programming, the idea that Hollywood ticks its hand. But if the source is right, and a scriptwriter in 1951 included details that align with ancient Sumerian myths, Mayan math, and specific brown dwarf theories. How?
That is the question.
Was it just a massive coincidence? A really lucky guess? Or did someone in that writer's room over 70 years ago know something about our solar system that the rest of us are just now starting to figure out?
That's the question that keeps you up at night.
It sure is. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep your eyes on the skies, and we'll catch you on the next one.